Welcome to episode 167 of the CUInsight Experience. I'm Randy Smith, one of the co-founders of CUInsight.com, and this show is all about taking a deep dive with the leaders of the credit union movement that make it so great. This episode is brought to you by PSCU, the nation's premier payments CUSO and an integrated financial technology solutions provider. Visit PSCU.com to learn more and discover PSCUTV, a new thought leadership platform hosted by PSCU's Chief Growth Officer, and he's also an all-around great guy, Brian Scott. Each episode, they explore top-of-mind insights in the credit union industry. Today, I get to have a conversation with Ronaldo Hardy. Ronaldo is the president and CEO of NACUSO. I should say the new president and CEO of NACUSO. Welcome to the show, my friend. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
For the people that don't know you, let's get a little bit of background on you. Where'd the career start? How did you get to credit unions even, and where you are today?
I really had no desire to work in financial services. It was not the career that I thought that I would be doing. I actually thought that I was going to go to school for computer science. That was where we were all being directed when I was graduating high school. But I got this fantastic opportunity when I was a senior in high school. I was working for McDonald's at the time, and one of the area head tellers of a local community bank used to come in all the time. And on this particular day, she said to me, "Hey, every time I come in here, you are just so excellent to connect with. You get my order right. You're smiling all the time. And, I think that you would be really good on our teller line. Would you consider coming to work for us?" And so my final 6 weeks of high school, I started a job at a local community bank, the dark side, for as a part-time teller. I worked there a little over a year and a half before going to work for another bank. And then I spent about a year in call centers. And I got a call one day when I was in a call center from an HR manager of the credit union that I started in. And somebody else had actually given them my resume maybe about 4 to 6 months earlier when I was looking for a job. And so they called on this day and they said, "We have this job in our call center. Would you consider coming to interview for it?" And I'm glad that they actually decided to continue with the interview, because I was definitely quite confused when they called, like, "Where are you calling from? I did not apply for a job with you. Why are you calling me?" But yes, I'll come in. I got the job, and the rest is history. I went on to work for that credit union for about 7.5 years, held 7 positions there, got a chance to really learn a lot about what credit unions do, how they operate, how they function. And then in 2010, I think this is when you and I probably met, I competed in a competition, Next Top Credit Union Exec. It was year one of that competition that CUSO put on. I ended up becoming the runner-up in that competition, and that really launched my journey in our industry from a national perspective. From there, I crashed the GAC. I was given a project, or asked to do a project, which just so happened to be starting the Young Professionals Network in Louisiana. We grew very quickly, and we really started to help other states to do the same. I got involved in doing some of that same work for CUNA. And then literally a year to date after Next Top Credit Union Exec, I got an opportunity to start as president and CEO of a small credit union. So that was my first journey into leading a credit union. And I was so excited to be able to contribute to the organizational direction and the strategic direction of that credit union. We did some really dynamic things there, really challenging how we approach technology, innovation, what the future looked like, reducing the average age of member, which everybody was talking about at that time. Yeah. And I was really proud of what we were doing. And then I got an opportunity to move to another credit union that was a little larger. And we really were able to focus in another area that meant a lot to me in community development. We had a very progressive vision of eliminating poverty in our community. And I was very proud of the work that we were doing there. While I was doing that, I also began to amplify a discussion in our industry around 2017 around DEI. So long before everything happened with George Floyd, before it was, a very hot topic that everybody was running towards. As a matter of fact, when I started talking about it, I was a little apprehensive about what it would mean for my career. But I'm grateful that we really started having that dialogue, because over time, the industry really started to come around. And I got an opportunity for the last nearly 4 years to help our industry to move forward in that lane, consulting credit unions around the nation. And that has led me to this seat that I'm in now at NACUSO. And I'm excited about what the future is going to look like for NACUSO.
Talk to me while it's still fresh on the mind. I've got two different questions here. When your decision, the process that you went through when you saw this opportunity come up to say, this might be a good fit for me, I'm going to pursue this, number one. And then number two, since it is fairly new, and I love to ask people new in the position about this. For that senior leader, maybe a CEO is looking at a different opportunity, like today, any tips? You just went through the practice, like the whole process, I should say. Any tips for them that are top of mind to help them get their next gig, their next opportunity?
Absolutely. So I will say this, and I was just talking to my board about this moments ago. When I first saw the position description, when the ad was posted, I looked at it and I said, oh my God, this really sounds like they're talking about me.
Oh, that's amazing.
Reading it over and over again. And I'm like, somebody really wrote this job posting in a way that describes who I am. I think that I should give this some consideration. And I was talking to a friend of mine in the industry, Juan, who's now the CEO of the Louisiana Credit Union League.
Been a guest on the show also, so we'll shout out to Juan.
He and I were talking one night. He said, I don't know if you saw this position with NACUSO, but I really think that you should consider that role. This sounds like you. I think you would do a good job. It sounds very exciting. He said, I think that anybody who gets that job will be quite excited to build out with that organization, and you should give it some consideration. He did not know that I had already looked at it and kind of thought the same thing. And I was trying to determine whether or not I would step into this particular search. And so that was on a Friday night. By that Sunday, I was actually talking. I talked to Jill, who helped to lead that search. And I said, I asked her all kinds of questions, and she did a really good job just navigating me through the role and what it would take and what the organization was looking like. And for me, it continued to confirm that this was exactly what I thought it would be, and that I should jump into this search. And I can tell you, every step along the way has continued to clarify for me that this is, in fact, the right seat for me. It's going to allow me to make the contributions that I love to make in our industry. And I really don't, I say it like this, I don't have to become to do this. I just have to be. Who I am is naturally aligned with what this role needs. And I'm excited that I don't have to do a whole lot of evolving to step into it. I get to show up as who I am every single day in a way that's going to make great impact. To your second question, what I will say, for those who are interested in elevating their career and they're thinking about maybe going after a CEO position, I would be very thoughtful about what matters to you. Personally, looking at an organization that's going to be aligned with your core values, the strategic direction of the organization is a great fit for you. And it doesn't have to mean that the organization is necessarily looking like what you desire it to look like today. Maybe that board is successful at communicating where they desire to go. And in doing so, they're able to demonstrate to you how you would fit in that picture. I think that that's the first step, because sometimes people just think, I just want those 3 letters. I want CEO. And if you get those 3 letters and it's not the right fit, it won't matter. So the first thing is to just really consider who you are, what you'd like to do, where you'd like to be, what would make you happy, what you can stick with long term. Those things matter. And from there, really fine tune how you position yourself for the role, because sometimes people see a role They like it. It looks like something that would fit for them. And then they do a horrible job conveying why they would be a good fit for the role. Like simple things, if you're going to send a cover letter in, make sure that you speak to the desires of the board. Like, just make sure that you're adequately conveying who you are and how you would contribute to that position. Make sure that you do have a vision for it. You can't just come in and say, I'm going to do great work. Like, what is that going to look like? What is the vision that you have to move the organization forward? And if it's a great alignment in terms of what the role needs or what the board desires, and if you have a compelling vision for how to execute that and get there, then I think that the rest will take care of itself.
Let me ask you a big picture question here, and it's a kind of two sides of the coin. We'll start negative first. What are maybe it's not negative because it's actually exciting for somebody who likes change. I find it exciting, but what are the biggest challenges that you see for credit unions and CUSOs currently, and like what has you most excited for this movement, the industry? What gets you going in the morning?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for credit unions right now is keeping up with the pace of technology and the change that is happening constantly in our society. Consumer demands are evolving at a rapid pace, probably faster than ever before. And keeping up with that pace is sometimes difficult, especially when we're competing from a technological perspective with much larger entities. Some of these companies who have had historically nothing to do with the financial sector and space are trying to step into our area. And so for the longest, credit unions could just rely on relationship to advance their organizations. And that's not enough anymore. The relationship does matter, because it is imperative that we are doing a good job making sure we're managing our connection with our membership. But technology is an expectation. And as you look at new generations that are coming up and emerging, their expectations are changing. And even how they view the relationship, you're thinking, well, for me, relationship is face to face, it's connecting, it's talking. And for them, it's like, no, do you have the technology that I need? Am I able to get everything done quickly? If I desire that I want to communicate with you, can I do that via live chat? Will you be responsive? Can you execute this sometimes without me ever seeing you, but in a way that makes me feel seen? So even though I don't see you, I want to feel seen. I think that is what's happening within our generation. And I think credit unions are really trying to figure that out and how they keep up. It looks like you have a little follow-up question.
I do. I'm going to kind of, I don't want to say put you on the spot here, but I think it might be serving you up more of like a lob more than anything here. But where can CUSOs play a role in this? Like, I am such a firm believer in CUSOs are just this beautiful thing that credit unions have. But you're the president and CEO of a CUSO. Tell us, how can CUSOs play a role in this?
Well, I love that our board chair, Becky Reed, she says this: collaboration is our superpower and CUSOs are our superheroes. The reality is that we have an opportunity to gain competitive advantage by collaborating. I love what CUSOs mean to our space. It is really imperative that we engage CUSOs more often in order to move forward collectively. If I could consider anything for our industry, I think that we need to do a better job at leveraging the CUSO system, or that model, if you will, to advance. I think a lot of credit unions are not considering it in ways that they need to. There are tons that are, but there are a whole lot more that should be, whether or not it's engaging with the services of a CUSO or starting CUSOs and developing them in order to advance organizational strategies, advance the industry as a whole. I just think that there's so much more that we can do. So when I look at CUSOs, not only are we able to leverage opportunities that maybe we could not do individually, and, as a collective group, there's an opportunity to reduce or mitigate risk, right, by coming together. There's an opportunity as well to add additional products and services that one entity may not be able to do on its own, right? So all of these things really increase the pathway for progress. And for me, it's a no-brainer that we would leverage this model to make great progress as an industry overall. And that's what I'm most excited about. I really look at our organization as an organization that drives innovation and collaboration for our entire industry. And as we continue growing into the future, we absolutely intend on staking our claim there and making sure that the industry recognizes that that's what we're here for. When I look at the sustainability of what we're building as an industry, it's going to be very difficult to do that without the proper technology. It's going to be very difficult to do that without collaboration and cooperation. Come on, we're a cooperative business model, right? So
it's in the name.
It's in the name, right? It's going to be difficult to do those things without leveraging the CUSO model. And so for me, I feel like my job and my role is to be a bit of an evangelist, if you will, to help others to understand how to leverage the CUSO model, the business model to be successful. We have fintechs in our space as well that are doing an excellent job helping us to create a competitive advantage. And it's something that we should be utilizing more often. And so I want to help credit unions to understand that more and to help them to understand that credit unions can and should be a part of the CUSO.
Absolutely.
As we build out the ecosystem, the CUSO is a very unique experience and opportunity for credit unions, CUSOs, and fintechs, and even credit union service partners to come together in one space to advance collectively. And I'm excited about what the future of the CUSO is going to look like.
I am looking forward to watching what you do with that, because I think you are completely right. As we were talking before we hit record, the opportunity is amazing. And
it is.
I'm excited for you, my friend. Well, you mentioned earlier in that answer about your board chair, Becky. She was on the show not too long ago as well. And that was like the first time I'd really had a longer conversation with her, and I enjoyed it so much. Talk about a great board chair. she has vision,
fantastic.
Right? Yeah, amazing.
She's fantastic. She is.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm actually going to jump ahead just since we were talking about your board chair here. You've been a CEO before. Okay. You and you mentioned, I think we probably met during the last credit union exec. So 2010, that's a long time ago now.
It is.
We've seen others like you, like when you were young, much younger even, become CEOs. I've noticed with friends who have become CEOs for the first time, and this isn't your first time, this isn't your first rodeo. So it's, I'm asking you maybe to think backwards a little bit, but that they were almost, I guess, like one of the most surprising things to them was, even if they had been in senior roles and had been in board meetings and things like that, the relationship of the CEO to the board. It's like you have your staff, your team, right? But then you also have these bosses. You almost go from like one boss to 9 or 10 or 13 or however many.
Yes.
Is there, for that first time CEO, is there any words of advice, tips, hacks on what you need to make sure that board relationship is beautiful?
Well, let me start here. I'll say two things and then I'll get there. First of all, there's always this thought process prior to being CEO that you have an understanding of it. You're right. Ahead of time. When I tell you, I don't care how close you sat to that corner office, you have no clue until you're sitting in that seat. All right. When you sit in that seat for the first time, you're like, oh, wow, this is what this feels like, right? I actually have to be the chief decision maker around here. I have to have a compelling vision. My job really never fully turns off, because if anything happens organizationally, if it's an emergency of sorts, I have to be activated. So that's completely different. The other thing I'll say, and then I'll talk specifically about the board, is that when you are CEO, to me, and I say this to everyone, the role is a gigantic relationship management role. Like literally, that's what you're doing. You're managing relationships at every level. So it's the membership, it's the staff, it's the community, it's the board, it is the industry at large. It's relationship management. It happens to be a key and core competency of being able to be successful in the CEO seat. And without a focus on relationship management, failure is inevitable. Speaking directly as it relates to the board, the relationship between the board and CEO is absolutely vital for the success of the organization. If it's fractured, it will be felt throughout the organization. And I think one of the things that happens to be vital in building that is to establish just great communication loops from the very beginning. So making sure that there is a way to connect across the board, building rapport, having the opportunity to engage the board collectively, but also engaging them one-on-one. So you get to know everybody that's on the board. Your board chair, you have to absolutely manage a very close relationship with the board chair. Do not let your board chair be surprised with anything. That is the way.
There's the golden tip right there.
Absolutely. The greatest thing is to encourage ongoing dialogue and communication. And I love that. In my previous journeys, that's been a focus for me. And in this journey, we've already started that way. Even prior to my start date, we were already in communication with each other, establishing that rapport. I am working with a very dynamic board, and I am excited to work with this crew. The brain trust that we have at the table happens to be incredibly dynamic. You talked about Becky, who is our chair as well. She's dynamic, and we've already created a very strong rapport with one another. So I'm excited about that. But to anybody aspiring to this seat, please prepare yourself for relationship management. And if it's something that you struggle with, get some executive coaching, figure those things out before you take that seat. Because if you do it prior to doing that, you're going to cause yourself and others damage.
Let me ask you a question. It's kind of more about your network, whether it's mentors, you mentioned, talking to Juan, things like that. Who does Ronaldo have that, like, when you bounce ideas off them, or when you have questions, or like, you're just like, you're sitting there thinking on something that's going to tell you the truth, right? There's a ton of people out there who are like, you're amazing, that's smart. Of course, great idea, no matter what, right? But then some people, and I'm specifically thinking of people right now in my mind along the CUInsight journey, where I'm like, what do you think of this? And they're like, that's dumb. What? You're going to be kidding me. Why would you do it? Oh, tell me more. Why? Right? Like, do you have those people around you that if you're like, is this a good idea or not, that you go to, whether it's inside or outside of credit unions?
Absolutely. Now, of course, the primary person who will let me know if what I'm thinking is dumb would be my wife.
That would be your wife, right? Yep, of course. Yep. Oh, trust me. The first person I ask is Jill for everything, right? Like, I hardly open my mouth anymore without asking Jill anything. So.
Fan of mine, but she has no problem saying, I think that makes no sense whatsoever. On my journey, I have had some great mentors along the way, and some of them are still engaged, or we continue to evolve. So earlier on my journey, my CEO of the first credit union that I led, she actually mentored me, and she would have one-on-one meetings with me monthly, which was super exciting and very impactful for me. As a matter of fact, I now have a master's degree, but at one point I had to step away from school because of some financial decisions I made. And because she saw this aptitude in me, and she knew for me to reach my full potential, I would need that. She paid for me to go back to school. She paid for my first course so that I would re-enter. And she and I had an opportunity to connect after this announcement. And she was ecstatic that I had gotten this opportunity.
Well, that's a beautiful story right there. That's amazing.
It is. Continue to have others in the industry as peers that I connect with. I mentioned Juan a while ago. He and we communicate quite frequently, and we have been a great support system to one another along the way. I have others like Renee Sadie-White from AACUC. Some of my great friends at CU Strategic Planning also have been great sources of inspiration. But one of my favorite mentors I have in my life, his name is Raymond Jetson. And he's from my local community. And we have just so many similarities. As a matter of fact, a lot of people who encounter us both, to include his wife. His wife is like, you are a younger version of him. And it's very encouraging for me to glean from him just some of his background. He pastored in our community for 23 years. He retired and decided that he would uplift a young pastor in the community. So I also pastor a church. He's the chairman of my board. He's with me now, but he was a member or a part of Governor Blanco's administration. leading the Department of Health and Hospitals. He's also started his own nonprofit, of which he's the CEO of. It's a social enterprise, a former councilman, state representative. So he's had this very high volume life. And he is just the person who really, really gets me. Anytime I sit down and I talk to him, he really has a good understanding. I feel like, you know how you talk to people and everything that comes out of their mouth sounds like wisdom? It really doesn't matter. He could sit down and tell me, you know, it is very important that when you're eating a hot dog, that you put mustard on it. And the way he says it will be like, oh, yeah, I should absolutely put mustard, right? But he's excellent at being both a fan, if you will, like uplifting me, but also counseling me through critical decisions and saying, maybe I would consider this. Maybe you should think this. On my journey, here are some things that helped me. And it's been very helpful to me to have that type of support on my leadership journey.
I was interested to ask you this question. I heard this on another podcast probably a year ago. So I've been asking everybody this year because I just love the question. And a couple of things that you've talked about, it's made me wonder how you would answer this. But the question is what's the greatest investment that you've made in your career? And I always give the example that when Warren Buffett was asked this, he said Dale Carnegie courses. So, but like for you, when you hear that question, what is that greatest investment that if you wouldn't be where you are today if you didn't take the time or use the money? It doesn't have to be money, right? It could be time to do this.
I'm going to answer that in two parts. So I would say these are almost equal for me, right? So I will say, first of all, it was entering the next top credit union exec competition. That absolutely supercharged my career in ways that I could have never anticipated. I was already successful on my credit union journey. So I was doing a lot of work in my credit union, but that competition in particular really elevated my exposure to our industry at large and introduced the industry to me. And when I tell you from that competition forward, I have never stopped moving. Doors just started to open for me. I was telling someone earlier today, I knew nothing of building a personal brand at that time. I'm a person, I follow my passion. And so for me, my passion kept leading me to the next step in ways that, I can make great impact. And we kept building on that over and over and over and over again. So without that competition, I'm not quite certain that I would be where I am because I don't know that the same doors would have opened for me had I not followed my heart. When I saw that opportunity, something in me knew that I was supposed to step into that competition, and the rest is history. And I think secondary would be my educational pursuit. So, going back to school was a very good thing for me. I am so glad that I listened to my mentor, and I'm glad I kept going. Not only did I complete my undergrad degree, but I kept going and I got a master's degree in something that I'm extremely passionate about. And those things, I think for me, have solidified who I've become and who I will be in the industry. One thing about education is once you have it, it cannot be taken away from you. And for me, I said to myself that I wanted to make sure that I was never left outside of the door because of a qualification that I did not have. And so obtaining that for me ensured that I could at least be invited to the table. And if I get to the table, I feel pretty confident a lot of the times that I'll be able to make the progress that I'm seeking.
This ties into a question I was going to ask later, but I think it fits better here. I think I'm a little bit older than you, but we probably still read a lot of the same books. Like, when we were first coming up. For the past, I think it was 4 years or so, like you were primarily working in DEI. So this idea, let's just say some of our early knowledge didn't maybe age well on what it takes to be a good leader, a good CEO, a good whatever it happens to be. In 2023, what does it mean, or what is a good or a great CEO or a great leader? What do they have? What do they look like? What's the, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. To me, the greatest leaders are people builders. So I have a personal mission statement for my life, and it is change the world by building the people who will change the world. And when I condense that, I always say I'm a people builder. And some people will look at me and they're like, okay, you have this career and then you have the church and you have a family. Like, you are just doing so many different things. And I tell people, no, I do one thing many different ways. I wake up every day to build people. And for me, I think that is the greatest competency of any leader, that you have to be committed to building people. A novice knowledge of leadership would say, oh, I get to be the boss. I get to tell people what to do. And as you grow and you progress in leadership, I'm grateful that my leadership journey actually started when I was 12 in my dad's church. I was put over our worship ministry. So my first leadership assignment happened to be leading volunteer adults at the age of 12. So very early, I learned that mindset around leadership and being in authority and telling people what to do. They showed me very quickly that is not how you do that. So building people, I believe, is the greatest competency a leader can develop within themselves. And I'm excited that now a lot of organizations are focused on emotional intelligence. So for me, that's always been an area that I have thrived in. I really understand people well. I happen to be an empath, so I feel a whole lot, and I'm able to utilize that understanding of people, how well I feel things to come together to help me to do what's in the best interest of people, which in turn helps us to do what's in the best interest of the organization. And these days, and I know you're seeing this, if you don't have that core competency of emotional intelligence, these days, you're not going to get as many leadership opportunities. I have never seen organizations talking about emotional intelligence in the ways in which they are today. I have my theories about why that is so. I think social media has played a part in that, just because of the evolution of society and what that has done to the human psyche and the awareness around even mental health. So that lack of emotional intelligence could really cause damage to individuals and organizations alike. I'll say that. And so it's important, I think, to grow in that area.
I like that. So I've got a question. I think about it from the standpoint that you mentioned you ran a small credit union. I know when you were at Credit Union Strategic Planning, it's a small business, right? Yeah, the NACUSO team, you kind of categorize you that way too. How have you learned over your career? Because I will tell you, this was a struggle for me as we were starting CUInsight. You have a great idea. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's not working. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe it's not whatever to be able to kill the idea because you have limited resources. You can only attack so much. And when I think of credit unions across the board, it's the same thing. We all have limited resources. We can't do everything. Have you picked up any tips, hacks, that you could share on how do you know when to stop, right? Like before you throw good money after bad or good energy after bad or good, resources, let's just use after bad. Anything that you've picked up along the way?
I think that kind of determining upfront what's your tolerance, for the risk and or failure of an idea, identifying that upfront. So, I do believe in trying to pursue ideas in spite of size, because I actually speak on this subject matter. I have a topic that I speak on called small as a mindset, not an asset size, because I do think sometimes people limit themselves by their asset size and they think, oh my God, we can't do this and we can't do that. And I always say, look, we were doing some of the most progressive things as a smaller institution. In fact, our industry was taking note of things we were doing with the resources we had. I believe that a lot of times limited resources increase our opportunity for creativity. So they typically, when resources are limited, we typically open the door for creativity. How do I continue to advance with limited resource? But I do believe that there should be some parameters and framework around those new ideas. So being able to determine how far can I go with this? If we start bleeding in any way, we start hemorrhaging, money and assets, what's our true tolerance? What's our stopping point? Identifying that upfront is necessary. And I think being able to balance that realistically, because as you are trying something new, there may be some aspects of failure that's experienced early on. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the idea should stop, right? Because sometimes it means that there's an opportunity for iteration and you can actually evolve an idea in a way that it can truly become successful. But there should be a level of risk tolerance that's established up front. So, when we reach this point, and if we reach this point, then we have to know it is time to stop. And we've all had ideas that we don't want to retire because they were passion projects, but sometimes you just have to.
You guys got to pull the plug. All right. So to wrap this thing up, we're going to have a little bit of fun. Rapid fire questions. It wouldn't be the show without them. The questions are rapid. Your answers do not have to be. There's a couple of these I'm really looking forward to asking you. What was the first job you ever had? The very first job?
So the very first job I had, it only lasted a couple of weeks. I was hired to be a busboy for a Chinese restaurant. And not only was I the busboy for the Chinese restaurant, but they actually asked the owners of the restaurant, they also needed someone to tutor their children. So I kind of had this interesting blend of a job that I was working at the Chinese restaurant, tutoring their children. And it just so happened that the area of McDonald's had an opportunity and I went to go work there my senior year. So I probably worked that job no longer than maybe 4 weeks.
My first job ever, I was also a busboy. I made it 4 hours and then told my mom to come pick me up. I hated it so much. So I was like, fine, I'll walk home. I'm done. No. So
yeah.
When was the last time, either personally or professionally, you were just amazed?
You know what? I will tell you that I'm quite amazed by this opportunity ahead at NACUSO. So if I talk about my last time, I'm quite amazed that this opportunity has opened up for me. And I really am excited about what it's going to mean. So, for me, I haven't seen quite often people my age take on roles like this. So this is a really new and great opportunity. And it has left me amazed.
Good answer. Is there anything that you're currently working on, Ronaldo, about? What's taking up that personal growth space?
Yes, I am. I'm continuing to stretch myself as it relates to my physical fitness. So about 2.5 years ago, I started working out with my friend, and I work out all the time. And I've been very excited about what my gains have been like in the gym. You probably knew me through a period that I was also heavier. So I lost a lot of weight and I got in the gym. And I'm actually surprising myself as I'm on my growth journey in the gym. I've come much farther than I would have ever imagined.
Good for you. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
So you mentioned your wife earlier, and I know you have a beautiful family. Often, to the ones, to us leading organizations, they can consume us at times. Any hacks, anything you've picked up along the way to create that full and beautiful life that it does seem like you have?
Absolutely. I tell you what, we keep dating. As a matter of fact, my wife and I have a date tonight.
Joel and I have a date on Sunday, actually. So when I get home, so it's we also scheduled dates also. Yeah, I love it.
Yes. She and I take a lot of time to get away as well. We are truly best friends. So our relationship is just very tight knit. Even when I'm away, I love technology because FaceTime has helped us to still be connected even when I'm on the road. And the same with my children. I am very much so all up in their world. I'm a nurturing dad. So I'm the place, ironically, that they do come with all of their emotions and feelings and things that, people would not historically typically think dads with, but that is my role. So because I have filled up that space in their lives, it has built a very deep bond and connection with them. And I make sure that they understand that they matter. We have very open dialogues, and they know that dad has a demanding career. But that demanding career helps me to be better for them, not to take away from them. And we work on making sure that even with them, I engage them collectively, but also one-on-one. So they each have their own time with me. They have their days that they get to set up and decide what we're going to do. And I have a ton of fun with them.
That's cool. What's the best piece of advice you ever received? And do you remember who gave it to you?
Actually, it was my mother. And so she really helped me to embrace people. in a very unique way. And I say this now, she didn't say it this way specifically, but it really helped me to develop the philosophy that I have for people and with people, which is why I love leading. But I always say you have to see people for their possibilities and not their problems. If you're going to be a great leader, that you really have to see the possibilities in people. And the gap between their problems and their possibilities is where you really have an opportunity to align their purpose and development. So I really, really love that. My mom, probably my biggest life inspiration throughout my journey.
That's beautiful. Maybe think about your wife right now for a second, how she'd answer this. Is there anything that she would say you're unreasonably cheap or thrifty on?
Oh, you know? You know what? I don't know that she would. I know what she would want me to be cheap and thrifty on.
She would prefer you to be more, eh?
Yes, it's true. I'm a sneakerhead. And so I have 170 pair of shoes. And so she's always like, you need to stop. This is just a lot. So she wants me to be cheaper with that.
So I know you're a music guy. What's that greatest album of all, that one that you can still listen to today, front to back, the whole thing?
It has to be Michael Jackson Thriller.
There you go.
It is that, to me, that's a phenomenal one. And if I had to have a second place, it would be Never Say Never by Brandy. I love Brandy.
Awesome. That's cool. Thriller's been brought up multiple times on this show. That question. So this was a question that came from NCUA Chairman Harper. Thought would be a good one to ask. Who plays Ronaldo in the movie biopic of your life?
Well, I mean, I think that it would have to be Jake from State Farm because everybody tells me we look just alike. So if we're just going for looks, right, then it's probably Jake from State Farm. Of course, I would love for it to be Michael B. Jordan or somebody like that.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. Hey, you've been hitting the gym, man. You've been hitting the gym. Come on.
You know, so maybe it's Michael B. Jordan.
When you hear the word success, who is the first person that comes to mind and why?
It would be my mom. You know, I love the fact that she followed her passion. She really was committed to doing what felt right in her heart, and she taught me to do the same. And, you know, her life was brief from my perspective. I didn't expect to lose her when I did, but I do love that she did what she was supposed to do while she was here.
Well, that is a beautiful way to wrap this up. My last question for you. Do you have any asks of our listeners or requests or final thoughts? I will add one of mine. Everybody should check out NACUSO's annual conference. It's a glorious event. I've been to it before. It's going to be big this year because Ronaldo's doing it. So what else do you want people to do for you?
Well, first of all, you helped me out right there, right? I would say, second of all, just engage us collectively to really give. If you have not checked out NACUSO, you absolutely should. I know a lot of people are trying to figure out, well, what's my place in the NACUSO ecosystem? We are one of the unique scenarios in our industry in that credit unions, CUSOs, fintechs, and also consultants or credit union service partners are able to be a part of what we're building. So if you have not checked out NACUSO yet, you absolutely should. And if you need to know more about why you should do that, please reach out to me.
Oh, there you go. That is it. Thank you so much for being on the show, Ronaldo. I look forward to our paths crossing again here soon, hopefully. If people have additional questions of you, what's the best way to reach you? Is it LinkedIn, email? How do you like to connect?
Yeah, shoot me an email, ronaldo@nacuso.org. Very easy.
Well, thanks. And we will link to everything we talked about in the show notes. And I appreciate you being here, my friend. Good luck. And I can't wait to watch what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
A few things before we go. Make sure to check out PSCU and learn more about PSCU TV. They've been a long-term partner of the CUInsight.com and the podcast, and I'm grateful for their support to allow us to have this much fun doing this and getting to have these conversations. It's a blast. My guess is Brian Scott is having as much fun hosting PSCU TV too. Please also subscribe to the CUInsight Experience on your favorite podcast player. We're on them all. And if you're looking for a book recommendation, and I'm actually going to follow because I skipped that question accidentally with Ronaldo, so I will put that in the show notes, what books he thinks you should be reading. But Google the CUInsight Experience podcast book list, and your next read will be on its way from Amazon. Last but certainly not least, I want to thank all of you for listening. Y'all rock, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Be well, friends.